Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us today. We are excited to kick off another APEX Officers JPAC session. In today's session on reimagining enterprise apps with APEX and AI, we have Stuart Coggins from the Oracle ANZ Cloud Engineering team, where he will explore how to integrate LLMs, vector, and spatial capabilities into enterprise apps using APEX. For those of you who already do not know Stuart, Stuart is a seasoned speaker and specializes in blending Oracle's broad global experience with the art of possible thinking to solve diverse business problems and fuel cloud adoption. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Stuart. Welcome, Stuart, and over to you.
Thank you, Apurva. Hello, welcome to everybody. I hope you guys are warmer than I am because it's absolutely freezing in Sydney right now. So thank you for the introduction. Yes, my name's Stuart Coggins. I'm based here in Sydney, Australia. I'm part of the cloud engineering, the customer engineering team. A lot of our conversations recently have been about the converged database, obviously using APEX, but more so about how to get started with artificial intelligence. And so because AI can be quite difficult to sort of understand and play with, what's happened is APEX has made it really easy for us to be able to play with AI and kind of almost forget what tool you're using. So APEX makes it really easy for us to do that sort of sandboxing. With that in mind, we came up with this idea of the pavilion, and this really is a way to showcase lots of specific technical use cases, but in a very small kind of window. So, you know, we do vector search, we're doing things like spatial, JSON, large language models, and all of those sorts of things are all built into this app. We can share this application. We've added things like robots to be able to understand how to use the apps. But we'll make this available for download very shortly so that you can get hold of that. We've also created a live SQL page where a lot of the code that we run and the applications is available right here. So it's not only a demonstration, it's a tool. Thank you. Inside of APEX too, just to show the various aspects, and it's used as a reference. So this is not just a demonstration, but it's actually a tool as well, as you'll see in a second. So we use lots of different things because of the nature of Oracle database and the converged part of that. Things like JSON, spatial, property graphs. It's great to be able to showcase all of those, especially in the context of AI. So what we did is we came up with this thing called the Pavilion. Now, some of you who know me may have seen this before. We've created a version now that is a standalone version that could be downloaded and installed, and we'll be able to share that with you at some point. And so all of these things become small references in terms of what we do. One of the things that we added very early on, because we could, and it also worked really well, is this idea of a guide. Let me get rid of that off the screen. This idea of a pavilion guide. So those of you that have used the APEX AI Assistant will know that this is a really quick way to add a chatbot capability. So what I've got in here is what kind of demos do we have? And so what we're able to do is just give ourselves a little bit of guidance. And if you want to search for a vector demo, then this will give you a list of those sorts of things. So we're at the mercy of my internet connection, and we're also at the mercy of the AI LLMs. But you'll see here that what we're doing is we're sending it a little bit of a backdrop of what demos we have access to, and then the guide will come back to us, hopefully. I shouldn't have started that one, should I? Who knew that that was going to happen? Should have put money on it. So, all right, maybe I'll just kill that one. Oh, there you go. There it came eventually. So again, this is the idea is that we've got a little bit of explanations of all the demos that are available in here, and then you can ask how to use them, that sort of thing. So I'm going to show you that in a second. But One of the other things that I've also done, which I will come back to in a second, is all of the code that we use, I've put into the new Oracle Live SQL site. So feel free to look in there. We'll share those links as we get chance. One of the other things we also have is there's a mechanism in the back end to create a script in like a Word document. And so I've got that. I'll drag it onto my screen in a second. When we get started with showing things like the vector capability, some people know what it is. There's some really good videos. Rupesh and Apurva and the team, Tawfiq, have done some really good videos on vectors and how that works. We simplified it a lot by doing what we call the movie search. And what we wanted to do was show the difference between if I do just a simple text search versus a vector, what does that look like? And so you can see here that in this one, if I search for Batman, this is a movie database. You'll see all Oracle demos have got movie databases. The items on the left all have Batman in the title. Now, obviously, it's case insensitive, but you can see every single one of them on the left has Batman, and it will only show you titles with Batman in the title. On the right-hand side, though, we're using a vector search. And so the same happens. We get the same list of movies up until round about here when we start getting a bit of a difference. So now we're starting to see movies that are like Batman. So this is how vector works. It's a similarity. And so we start to see other items. Now that's great for movies, but of course, no one's really bothered about movies and things. That's unless you're Netflix. And hopefully, I wonder if there are people from Netflix on. But if you're not from a movie organisation, how can we use this in the real world? So again, this app has been through many iterations. What I did, just to be clear, is I faked a whole lot of call centre interactions. That is people phoning or emailing a government organisation with their complaint. It's usually a complaint. I mean, let's face it, that's how it usually works. And so what was difficult to ascertain is if you could do a text search, that's fine. But what if we wanted to search for a behavior or a problem that isn't specifically ever said? So imagine this is voice to text or an email conversation. If I want to search for financial hardship, which is never explicitly said inside the database or in the text, then this is a way of searching for that. So if I just click on Megan's call here, you'll see here quite early on that she says here she's unemployed and finding it difficult to pay the amount. So financial hardship is kind of extracted from the text in terms of what was said there. Now, I wanted to show you the way we did this. It used to be a simple classic report with the select where with the vector. But the team reminded me that we've got all new capability inside of APEX. So if I go back to my application here, I want to show you that what was added in the latest versions was the idea of having vector providers. And so we've configured a vector provider in the database. And what I've done for the call center one is I've configured now this vector search. So basically, I tell it which schema, which database table I'm using, and then I give it a provider. This is a vector embedded model that now sits, and I tell it which column I want to use. So instead of creating a classic report and then adding a search box and then doing all the other elements to do the where clauses and all the rest of it, I can now simply go in and create a search page. And the search page, I don't have to do anything other than when it creates the search is tell it, there's the search results, is which search source I'm using. So I just tell it which one I've got here. And so super, super simple. And then I get this really nice page that I can configure. So we've changed the way we're doing search on the database, but by using vectors. I can see a few hands going up. Paul, are you taking care of those? I'll assume yes. So really quite nice way to do search without actually having and low code. So this is great. So again, if I go back to the call center intelligence, you can see here, this is what it used to look like. This is the old version of how we did the search. And now we don't do that at all. So that's really quite nice. Going back to here, again, same goes. This is, if you've ever seen Franco and myself do APEX from scratch, we will always create a wine list. Don't ask me why, but it seems to be a good idea. And so you could do a faceted search, or actually a faceted search like this one, or a search page that does these sorts of things. So if we're looking for a nice red wine from the McLaren, but actually I think Barossa is Franco's choice. So we'll do that. So I like a nice Shiraz. So there you go. I can see this. This is great. But what it's not doing is searching on this. It's really only searching on these key points. So what if I have a strange wine taste and I want to be a bit more interesting about myself? So now I've created, you may have noticed if you were watching, I created a search configuration for wine. So, excuse me, heavy red with legs and nice. I'm just pretending I know a little bit about wine here. So again, I'm now doing a search. It's not specifically ever said, or some of these things are said, but this is now giving me a different kind of search. I'm now searching on what the wine combination is. So if you change the way you do the search, the user experience is a little bit better. And so this is really quite nice now. And so this is a really nice way just to give ourselves a wine list that isn't just the specific characteristics. Now, one thing that we will do here, and I don't know if any of you guys have seen this before, but one thing we would like to do is, and I've created in the background a RAG configuration, which I'll explain what that is, but I'm just going to create a quick button here. Robert. So Robert is my sommelier, he's my AI sommelier. And he is going to be so this is how easy it is to add a chatbot functionality to your application. So show AI assistant. I'm going to tell it I want to use the AI sommelier. I'll leave it as all. I'm going to leave all the rest of it because I don't want to do too much. What I'll do is just quickly save that. And I'll show you what I've done in the background to show this. Again, this is a new capability that came in 24.2. I've now got this idea of AI configurations. If I go into AI Sommelier, you can see I'm using a Grok model in OCI. And what I've done is I've given the configuration a little bit of a prompt, not much, but enough to make this interesting. And you'll see here, I want the prompt to the AI assistant to have a tiny bit of personality. And I quite like this idea of being able to give it personality. Instead of it just being a robot, it's a bit more. And then obviously I tell it this. But the interesting piece is not that, it's this. I can now add sources. So, and I'm not talking about source that you put on your food. I'm talking about sources of data that you can now add. So what I've done is I've tried to, and this is where we start to play with the data. And I'm going to show you more about this a little bit later. But what we want to be able to do is not send too much to the large language model, because the more you send, obviously there are resource constraints, limits, cost constraints. So all I'm going to do is send a title. And what this means is the AI assistant is going to use the data in here. By the way, there's something like 1,700 rows of wines. They're only Australian wines. So again, you want to be careful of these tokens and that sort of thing. I can use this now to be a bit more filtered. I haven't for this demonstration, but I can actually go in and create a little bit of filtering in here to keep this list down. So I'll come back out of here. I'll go back to my, I did add that, I think. So there you go. So there's Robert. So if I now click Robert, I now get a chat bot. You didn't see me do any coding. I hope you'll notice. I am having a nice break for dinner. Let's see. Wish I could type Aussie Red New Mend. And let's see what it comes. It always comes back with Penfolds Grange, by the way, which is stupidly expensive. So I'm not going to choose that. But and you'll see, if you remember what I did with my prompt, I told it to have a little bit of pizzazz and flair. And so you'll see it's come back with a little bit more sort of expression in the chat. So you can give your chatbot's personality. And I think this is quite nice for me usability. As I mentioned, of course, it was going to come back with a Shiraz, a Grange, I should say. Crazy expensive. So let's do too expensive for me. How about something like Grange cheaper? So this is only using that data that it's got in the back. Obviously, it's a large language model, so it's going to pull in some data by itself. But the reality is it's actually using our data to come back with this list. And so I think if you want to add this kind of capability to your apps, to your existing apps, you can add value instantly with very, very little work. And so, again, you can see here that it's come back with a bit of imagine the guy waving his arms around telling you how wonderful his wines are. So I think this is a really nice way to add great capabilities to existing applications. Very, very simple to do. So that's what I've just showed you there is Apex AI Assist. So again, that's this capability built into Apex. I'm going to go back to the vector theme just to show you a little bit more about what's recently changed. We originally, if you did vectors in the database using what's called an ONNX model, Onyx, it was text. So we now have ONNX models for clip, which means we can do images. So this is an interesting choice. Some of these photos are mine. There are plenty of photos here to do a test. But if I want to do a test or a search for camping, as an example, now bear in mind I've got the vector turned off. So this is a text search. Now, what have I done? I have something like 200,000 images in this database stored as blobs in the database. So they're not in object store, they're in the database. I ran every single image through a clip encoding model to create a caption. So the caption is what you see at the bottom of here. It is a description of what the AI sees in the image. So then I've stored the caption and I've stored that as a vector. So if I do camping here as a search, what I will get is only images with the word camping in the description, which funnily enough, there aren't any. So how about if I turn vector on and do the same search? What I will now get is things like tents. So that obviously makes sense, camping, tents, I think they kind of go together. So now what we've got is a very different search where we can search for images. Now, I haven't got it in this version, and Rupesh has been helping me. We're about to do a search where you can upload an image and then find all the images that are very similar to that one. And so that's using the new Onyx clip models that are available. So a really neat capability if you're playing with images. Obviously, these are all sort of fun images, but you might have these as products or what have you. So that's all stored in the database as vectors. Again, if you want to see how we do that search capability, my image search is where have I gone? There we go, the image catalog. So the code actually is here. And so you can see I'm just doing a vector search. So I'm actually choosing, if I said use a vector, then I'm encoding the search term on the fly. So again, this code is all in my live SQL. So if you want to be able to replicate this, so this is a really nice way. The question is, could I do this with a search configuration? The answer is yes, but the search configuration I don't think brings back images yet. I'd have to look into how we do that one, but technically we should be able to do that as well. And I think as these capabilities get better, then obviously it simplifies the facts. So with the call center, I showed you not doing any of this kind of coding, and in this one I've just shown you how I'm actually using the vector embedding on the fly. And that's what that new vector provider does in Apex. It does all of that coding for you. So we can come away from that one. Okay. On the similar theme, again, searching for images is one thing, but is that useful? Now, we have a mechanism, I can show it to you if we need to, but where we can search through PDF text. What that does is when we upload a PDF, we actually chunk the PDF, save it to the database, vectorize it, and then do a RAG search where we search for the most likely answer to a question, send that to an LLM, and we get an answer back. This is a slightly different take. What I did was I took every single PowerPoint presentation from Cloud World in 2024, and I downloaded them all, and I put them all in Object Store. Now, they were all PDFs of PowerPoints, which means they were all images. So what happens is you end up with a PowerPoint full of pictures, basically. So here's an example of one. This is one of the ones there. It's a great presentation, but very difficult to search because it's all full of pictures. Oh, there's my Apex channel. Slipped up. So what I've done is I basically took every single page from all 774 presentations, and I sent them to the APEX to the OCI AI language model, object detection model, and did text extraction. So for every single page, I extracted the text for the PDF. I then stored that in the database. I then vectorized that, which means that I can do low code assist in here as a search term. And again, what I will now get is a list of documents or presentations that have that as a theme, or maybe words that are said in there. So exactly what I just talked about with chunking strategies is a complete coincidence that one came up. But again, this presentation now tells us what all these things mean. Now, if you think about this one for a second, this is not only a great demo, but it's also a really useful tool for us, because if we're ever searching for presentations that someone's done, boom, there they all are. And so this is a really useful way to go and do a search, and also something you could use in your own documents within your own organization. So there's lots of different ways to do this one. We have RAG agents, which is a really, really neat way to do things. But this one, because the PDFs were technically all images, we did it slightly differently with the text extraction models. So again, if anyone wants to know how to do that, I've put, I'm going to put some of the code. I don't think I've got the code for this one on there yet, but I'll have the code in here for this one. Yeah, it's not there yet, so we'll add that one in. But the reality is that this was really neat way, and we've got new capabilities now to be able to do this inside the database. So that's good. This one is really, really, really interesting. This was off the back of a request from a customer. What we wanted to do was use Select AI. So Select AI is huge. Everybody loves it. And when they come to use it, it becomes quite an interesting challenge about what it actually does and how it works. So what we did was we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into what we could do with Select AI. Now, full transparency, one of our colleagues in the engineering hub came up with the idea for doing the way that this is done. So I'm not going to take any credit for it. It was a really neat idea about what is done, and I'm going to explain it to you. So what this is, think of an emergency response center, but the number of data points is so big that it's very difficult to kind of get a grip on what might be happening. So what do I have here? Well, I've got every single school in New South Wales. I've got every single hospital in New South Wales. I've got airports and I've got train stations. And they're all plotted on a map, which is nice. They're all spatial encoded. In other words, the latitude, longitude is all encoded spatially so that we're able to do a little bit of proximity. Now, the other thing I've also done, and again, this is really neat for something like Select AI, so just bear this in mind, the fires that you see on the page, if you can see there's a little, it was supposed to be like a fire color, but it didn't show up very well. But these fires are a live feed from the Rural Fire Service in Australia. And so I've tried to filter it because there's thousands of them, filter it for the last 24, 48 hours. And so what we've got is this live feed. Now that's a REST API that updates its REST synchronization once an hour. There's no point in doing it any quicker than that, but it does it once an hour. So what I'm able to do is show it a little bit of this data. I've also got some custom endpoints that I added in. But what I wanted to be able to do is do a search with natural language. So if I do show me schools in Tamworth, and by the way, I've left the SQL showing on the screen, obviously for a demo purposes. So what this does is it uses Select AI, which is a profile you set across certain tables in the database, and it sends the column names to the LLM, and it comes back with what it thinks will be a really nice SQL statement. So it's done that, and while I was talking, because I was trying to keep going, so you can see what the SQL's done here. It also gives me the answer. Now, obviously, it's getting this data from my data only. So it's created the answer. But what we've also been able to do, which is really cool, is the filter on the map is only showing those schools in Tamworth. The reason I choose Tamworth, by the way, is I'm from Tamworth in England. So it always feels like home. So you can see here that I actually have only got on the map filtered results. Now that's really cool. And that the way we do that is we actually run the AI in the background. I can show you this, store the IDs of the schools in a hidden field, and then the filter for this is done on that hidden field. So that's cool. That not really spatial though, because that was just using where the suburb. Excuse me. So if I now do which schools are within 5 kilometres, now Ryde Hospital is near the Oracle office. So here you go. It's now done. Select AI has done this, not me. It's now done a spatial search. So you can see it's done a within distance of 5 kilometres. Oh, excuse me. And then if I zoom in, I think it's still going actually. It's still getting my list. How did that work? Yeah, I think it did. It hasn't refreshed my list yet, so that's interesting. So what I should get is a list of those schools there. Maybe I was moving the screen around too much. I suppose from a from an emergency response perspective, sort of go, well, This is more interesting. Now, you realise I've focused on schools here. There's a good reason I've focused on schools, but this could be any of these tables that we've got here. But if I ask it, which schools are within 20 kilometres of a planned burn? So the data set from the RFS is gives me different categories of fires. This one I'm obviously choosing for planned burns because I may want to, and it's school holidays at the moment, but if I wanted to, I might want to say I don't want the kids to go to school when they're within that, because kids with asthma, those sorts of things. So this would be a way of saying, so there's my SQL here. It's found a few. Now they usually, if I zoom right out, there's my fires. Seem to be losing my schools. Yeah, I'm losing my schools here. But what should happen is I should get a list of, I should only get schools show up that are near these fires. So ideally I'd be filtering the fires as well. I think we may be having a few. So it's found quite a few schools there. Now, obviously, I'm showing you what's in the background. That could quite easily be a nice report on the left there and still be able to do the filtering on the right-hand side. But so this code is an interesting one. It's a little bit clever, and that's why somebody else came up with it other than me. But let me show you very quickly what we do here. Might be hard to follow, but what we do is when we click, I then set the two page, so the set value for the select, this one, the select AI SQL and the narrative, I set those with a select AI command. But what I also do is once those have changed, I then save all the IDs from that query. So this is where it gets quite interesting. So what I do is for the given query, which is the one that came back from select AI, is I run that query and then I store each of the IDs in that hidden field. And now I'm actually adding them to a collection here. And so then what I'm able to do is when I do my school spatial, I actually select only the IDs that are in that hidden field. So this is a really quite neat way to go run select AI to come up with a SQL statement, then run it, and then store the answer in a hidden field. So again, a bit complicated to follow, but if you get a copy of the app, then you're able to see how we do that. We actually built that for two mechanisms. One was this one as well, where I was able to say, show me arch bridges. So this one is more bridge and bridge maintenance. So I don't know if I actually click that or not. I think me scrolling around is probably not going to help. I'll just reset that. So there's all my nice bridges. I've only chosen a few, and you can see I've got a bit of data in here showing me bridges. There, not maintained since 2024. So this will, again, filter the result set based on some maintenance. So exactly the same mechanism here, but I'm using bridges. I should have set the spinner to come on here so we can see what's happening. Not much luck with Select AI this afternoon. I don't know if it's just the time of day. It's probably given up and gone home already. I can't tell if that's working or not. All right, I'm gonna leave that one. I think that's taking a bit of a time. But you can see here that we can start adding in some other filters just to make sure that that is a smaller list. I think that filter. Okay, so let's give up on that one for a second. Okay, now probably my favorite is so those of you that know me know that a few myself and a few colleagues play with the Formula One stuff, the F1 simulator. The guys in the US at HQ built an Ask Max that was brilliant. It was really, really good. But we decided to do it our own way with APEX. The original one wasn't with APEX, but we wanted to showcase the capabilities in APEX. So there's a few things that are really important about the way we do this. Firstly, the reason I have this in the top corner is because none of the data for this demo is in this database. It is all in a different database. It's not even a different schema. It's a completely different, in fact, it's a 19C database. So it's completely separate. So what I've done is I'm actually pulling in, and I'm going to show you some of this before I show you the cool stuff. But I just want to show you that we're invoking APIs on the fly. So, so what I do is I go fetch the leaderboard, and you can see that I've got this Invoke API here. I'd get the lap time data, the session lap. Now, here's what the data looks like. For the last lap time, it's a REST API with this. Actually, I'm going to keep that one for a second. I want to show you first. So what I've got is some nice data here. I'm now going to do the Ask Max. Obviously, it's not Max. It's an LLM, but you get the idea. So this is really interesting what we did here, because the data is one thing and the prompt is another. The data is probably more important than the prompt, but you'll see here how we start to get a bit clever with the data. The reason I love this is that generally with LLMs and AI is you're asking for some text around a subject or some data. What we did do is do a generation where we can generate some text from something or nothing. Where we're getting to is the idea of opinion. So the LLM has an opinion. Now we give it some hints about what the opinion should be, but technically we're telling the LLM to give us back an opinion. If you think about this in a business context, the next stage is decision. And the next stage after decision is action. And that's where things like agents come in. So you're starting to see that capability coming now. Now, if you look at this, what he's done, I say he, the LLM, but you get what I'm saying. What it's done is it's taken the breakdown of his lap and this lap, Ted's lap, and it's compared the two. And it's basically saying, he's trying to give us a bit of help on where we lost time. So if I say, tell me way more about turn 11. So I'm digging into the data here. Now, we've all done this with BI, where you, or business analytics, where you press a thing and you see a thing and then you click on it, it drills down and then it gives you more data. What I like about this, it's the same idea, but with kind of, I mean, look how much data it's got here just for one turn. And so it's basically saying that, you know, when you're coming out of turn 10, it affects turn 11. So what we're starting to see is more context around that data and actually trying to show where could you do better. And it will start to come back with, you know, break earlier, break later, accelerate earlier. So again, this idea of opinion. And this is a really neat way to show opinion. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to show you how we do this. And there's two things that are really important to note. So let's just see what he comes back with first. There you go. So it's basically telling me quite a lot to do better as it happens. So this is quite neat because you can see that he's given us, he's basically a race engineer giving, I mean, that's quite a lot of advice, right, for that lap. And it was only 10 seconds slower than Max's lap, but 10 seconds in Formula One is an eternity. So two things I mentioned. One is that's the lap data, but this is the commentary on that data. So I spent quite a lot of time building this. So that Ask Max is based on this kind of information. So you can see here that I've got location data, whether I improved or not, and then in English. So I actually turn it into an English. So basically that's 0.03 of a second, or 30 tenths, I think. Anyway, yeah, 30 thousands. Then obviously for each one of these turns, I've got the minimum, maximum speeds, the breaking points. So max is in the LLM is comparing. Max broke at 245 meters, and this driver braked at 300. In other words, way too late as far as he's concerned. And these are in meters. And so you can see the comparisons here about how he's using the data. Now, that's the first part. What is the second part? Well, I'm now using the AI configurations. Thank you, Rupesh. He gave me a nudge in the side to use the AI configurations now. It was great, actually. I'm glad I did. And it only took me about 10 minutes to convert from the old LLM way to the new one. So, again, this is quite an interesting approach to the prompt. So the prompt says, I won't read it all out, I promise, because my throat won't last long enough. But you're a racing driver, and so you're a race engineer, data analyst, and your role is to provide data-driven response. I'm obviously giving it its domain and some guardrails here. So we spent a lot of time building this out. We're telling the large language model what is in the data. And this is really important because if you don't, the large language model, people call it hallucination. I know it is, but it's probability and likelihood and logic. So it kind of makes it up because it thinks it might be right. So if you tell it, it won't make it up. So we basically tell it what all the data is. And that's all we're doing here. And then I say, when you're outputting it, so I didn't do this, but if I do, show me the leaderboard. So because I asked it to format the output as a table, what we will get is a nice table here, unless it doesn't, of course, you should. It's only 4:45. Come on, there we go. So there's my nice table of my leaderboard. And so because we told the LLM to output as a table, and so you can see how we did that. Then we did, there's the prompt there, but this is where we then pull in that data from the page. So what I do is I pull in my lap comparison data, which is that API. So that is this data set. I'm pulling that in. And I'm storing that in here. So I'm sending that back to the LLM. And then the other thing I'm pulling in is the sim data, which is all of that. Oh, actually, that leaderboard table, yeah. So actually, the other one was the events. This one is just the leaderboard table. So those two data points, this one and this one, get sent to the LLM, and that's how we're able to get this kind of great response from the large language model. So that is everything I was going to show you. Like I said, we do have, and if you haven't seen Live SQL yet, please do. It is a really neat way to keep your code and share. But what I've got in here, I'm just spend a minute or two on here. Everything we've done, we're trying to put the code in here so that it's an easy way just to copy it. You can actually run it if you go click on the worksheet. Obviously, I've taken out the actual credentials, but if you want to create a Select AI profile, this is how we set these up. These are the examples of how to do the AI generate the questions. So just by way of showing you what I mean by that, I set one up for the spatial before, and then I can do literally a select statement here that will go and run that that query, and it gives me my query here. So you can see here that you can run these. So that code is technically live. So that's for Select AI, and there's some additional attributes. Here's how to set credentials and profiles. Now I have a blog on this because I found it really complicated, and there's so many different credentials and profiles that I wanted to keep that nice and tidy. Here is the max prompt. So for those of you wanting to look into the max prompt, how do we do that? And I thoroughly recommend looking into this and making sure that if you're playing with large language models, this is a really good way to keep yourself in order and make sure that the large language model behaves. The call center intelligence, what I didn't mention to you was that each one of those things was sent to the OCI service for sentiment and key phrases. And then these were the responses we get back. So I can see positive and negative. Excuse me. So these are their responses. And then this was one for RAG agents. Excuse me. So we're starting to build out all the code in here so you can use them as examples. Apurva, I'm about to explode with my throat, so I might just take a break for a second. If you want to, I'm good for questions now.
Yeah, no, thanks, Stuart. Thanks for taking the time out to present your solution today. I think we have a few questions around Gen AI in the chat. So if you can take that up while I wind up the session, that would be great. Or we could also take it up after the session. You can contact us and we can take it further.
Sorry, I was looking for mute. Okay, so what I showed you, I'll just quickly hit a couple of these questions. I have running locally a large language model on Olama. But what we can do is when we do, tell me if I'm going too fast, we can set up generative AI endpoints, and you'll see here that I'm running Olama inside my tenancy. And everyone's going to go and hit that now, aren't they? I shouldn't have shown that. But this is me running Olama with custom models. So as long as the model is OpenAI API compliant, so basically when I create a new one of these, I just tell it which endpoint I want to use, and then I can tell it the URL. So to use custom models, LLM models, now these could be in OCI, they could be hosted on a GPU. You can host them on CPUs, but probably not the best idea. But that is possible. So that's the hosting. I think whether or not you can, by the way, there's lots of different models you can use. When I showed you Select AI, you can choose the model name and you're the provider. And there's a whole, if you look at the documentation, there's loads of providers, including Gemma. So that's the first question on there. Yes, I'll make the app available. I should have shared the link with Apurva to do that beforehand. So we might, we can put that out on LinkedIn, on the post, can't we, Apurva, where we can share that, how to get hold of the app. But I do plan to make this app downloadable. It is only one app. The data sets we probably can't share, but I can show how to create data sets for those, because most of it's synthetic. Oh, there's some interesting questions there about using this. So, yeah, there's some code pilot and some, so Oracle's released a code assist, which is specifically trained on Java and PL SQL and things. So I would probably look at those. I don't know if you noticed, but in the last sort of 48 hours, there's been a lot of noise about MCP. So we can now run MCP as part of SQL CL. Yeah, it's hard to comment on the Gen AI services in Australia. We don't have them yet here. If you make enough noise, we can make enough noise to try and get them. Right now, the answer is you can host your own locally, like I just showed you with something like Olama. But right now, the OCI Gen AI services, they're in several locations, but one of them isn't here yet. Yes, the models for AI Create Profile. In fact, when we did this run through last week, since we did that, our AI models have been refreshed. So really quickly, I'll just show you this. Am I still sharing? Yeah, I am still sharing, right? Yes. So this all changed, and literally the model we've been using got retired. So these are changing at a rate of knots. So if you go to our AI services now, that's the latest list. In fact, I added Grok to my demo today just to play with Grok, because I've not used Grok before. So those create profiles. Generally, the profile doesn't change, but some of the endpoints that are available are. My YouTube channel. I'm still building this. It's a bit of personal. Franco and I are trying to get up to speed. All my videos will be super short and only cover one subject. So it's Apex Stew. I know it's stew as in a casserole, or not as in stew with a U, as how you actually spell my name. But essentially, I'm just trying to collect as many quick tips as I can in here. So the live sequel, we'll publish this link, and also we'll publish. I think my YouTube channels probably needs a bit of work yet. But anyway, shameless plug while I had the chance. Any other questions? Annotations? Yes. So annotations and comments. I don't know if you noticed, but when you do your Select AI profile, excuse the scrolling, you can actually tell the LLM, Select AI, whether you want to use the comments or the annotations. My advice, you should comment. And so the more detail you give the LLM, the better the response will be. There was a hand up there, I wasn't sure. Yeah, that question that's still on there, that's probably Code Assist and the Visual Studio Code add-on that's been updated recently. There's probably better people than me to talk about that one. I know Apex has some tools for that, but I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if Apoorva or Rupesh has a view on that last question. Any more while I can still talk?
I think that's it we have in the Q&A section. Oh, we got one more.
Oh, okay, one more. Okay, good question. So the custom Olama model is running on a Windows machine on a GPU. And so I'm just running it literally in, I'm using Windows subsystem. So API, I can't remember what the endpoint is, but basically it's just running Olama on Windows subsystem for Linux, sitting on it is running on a GPU though. It's running on an A10 as it happens. So, and you can then, any of the Hugging Face models that you can run in Olama run really, really easily. I was hoping to show you then the list, but I can't remember off the top of my head what the endpoint was. I'll have to have a look. But it's really easy to do. How the LLM will act to support the Gen AI. So basically all the Gen AI, all of it goes to an LLM. Everything I showed you apart from the vectors goes to a large language model. And so whether or not it's hosted in OCI, for some of our customers, it's hosted elsewhere. They're still using Apex, but they're using their own large language model. So basically Gen AI does, I don't know if you quickly noticed, you can do the embedding chats. Generation's been removed, I think, but technically you've got these different ways. If you do use OCI Gen AI, you can take these models and then you can create your own tuned models, and you can host them in OCI. So they become private large language models. Our language models are not like, it's not like using ChatGPT. It's not the same kind of mechanism, but again, you can use any of these, and they're actually quite quick. So all of the APEX code is going back to these LLMs. I should have asked Franco how to make a chicken curry, but why is the sky blue? Seems like a good one these days. Anyway. It can, but no. Sorry, answer the question. Does Gen AI service replace other AI services in OCI? No. In fact, we use them in conjunction with each other. So, for instance, the call center intelligence. If I do student support as an example, so if I click on a different one, you'll see here the key phrases and the sentiment. They're all coming from OCI services. I forgot to show you this one as well. Yeah, so all of these are using AI services in the background. So this one is using the LLM and the other two are using the OCI services. So we actually vectorize these things. We only vectorize the important bits of information just to keep it down. So no, it doesn't replace, but they work in conjunction. I guess they could in some instances. You can use an LLM to do embedding there.
All right.
Good questions.
Yeah, those were great questions, and thank you, Stuart, for taking it up. And that was quite insightful and resourceful. So maybe when I wind up, you could share the links to the AI Pavilion in the chat for our attendees to access.
Yes, yes, absolutely. In fact, if you want to access, I'll do that now. Let me log out. So you can access the actual app here, and the login is on the front page. Let me share that in the chat. There we go. So that's how to access the application itself. The actual download of the app, I'll need to just organize that so that we can make that available. And then this is, let me just get the share link for this. And this is the live SQL. So I'll be adding to this as we go along as well. There you go. Oh, actually, only you can see that, can't you? I've only shared that with, let me share that with everyone. Sorry. My bad. There we go. Shared. Yep, I've added it to the chat now. The password is on the front screen.
Yeah,
I get that all the time. Read the screen.
I'll start sharing the screen if you can stop sharing.
Oh, yep. Sorry. Yes. My bad. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone get those. I expect a massive burst now of usage. Thank you.
So, our training and certification, we have developed a full-fledged soup to nuts APEX training and certification from the Oracle APEX product team. So, to access the training, you can head over to apex.oracle.com/course/training, where you will get access to both the courses, which are absolutely free. One is the foundations, where we teach you the basic concepts to getting started with Apex. And we have the developer professional learning path, where we teach you in depth of all the Apex concepts that you would need to develop an enterprise level app. And associated with that is also the certification. So currently we are running, the Oracle University is running a race to certification promo. As part of that, we have the Apex certification free until October 31st. So go ahead and register for the exam and pass it to earn a badge. Next, if many of you are already aware that we run a monthly Apex Office as JPAC sessions, and we would love to host you in one of our sessions if you have built a cool Apex app, or if you know a partner or a customer who would like to showcase their solution, please come forward and share it with our community. And I think we have a very vibrant and amazing community here. And lately, we have been seeing a lot of Apex apps being shared on social media. So we would love to for you to come forward and share it with the community. And if you have missed any of the previous Office Hours session, or if you would like to access this session, we host all the recordings on the YouTube playlist that is displayed on the screen. So you can head over to the link displayed on the screen and access the recordings at any time. And with that, we have come to the end of the session. So thank you all for attending today's session. Have a great day. See you in the next session. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, team.
Thank you.